I want to just allow you the opportunity to go deeper into something you said recently. You said, quote, "It's over. I don't think there is a Democrat Party right now." What did you mean by that? And please take some time to explain.
Well, you can ascertain that by a lot of factors. We've never really seen the Republican Party register more voters in a year or any definite period that was defined than the Democratic Party. And we're seeing, in addition to that, massive defections from the Democratic Party to the independent affiliations. And then we see this astounding statistic that while the white vote in 16, 20, and 24 stayed pretty constant, the reason that Donald Trump won the popular vote the third time around was a 55% of Hispanics and maybe anywhere from 23 to 25% Hispanic males, and then 20 to 25% of black males. So the data shows that something's going wrong. And then you look at the popularity indices, and there's about 35% popularity for the Democratic Party. That doesn't mean that they can't win a binary election if they run, that just demonize Trump and say that, we don't represent anything, we just represent non-Trump. And it's always harder to have a counter-revolution restoration in a year than it's easier to destroy things in 4 years, like I think the Biden period did. But the question I think you're asking is, what happened to them? Why? And I think there was a lot of factors. One is we have 50 million people who were not born in the United States. And so when you look at a lot of the signature candidates are politicos in the Democratic Party, whether it's the Squad, Ilhan Omar, or Mondami, the first and second generation were not receptive to the idea of civic education, or we didn't offer it to them. So assimilation, integration may have taken place on a personal level, but it surely didn't in an Americanization. And so we brought a lot of people into the country, and yet when they set foot here, most of them were from the former third world. Their attitude was, the left offers me all sorts of benefits, free this, scholarships, student loans, DEI preference, affirmative action, and the right is more entrepreneurial. So you see a breakdown of a lot of immigrants who are entrepreneurial, electricians, plumbers, are voting Republican, but the elite that has had a very powerful effect on the Democratic Party, the elite first and second generation immigrant, especially on matters of Israel or DEI. The second thing, very quickly, is the universities are not liberal biased anymore. They're socialist biased, and they have trained the elite of the Democratic Party. Third, globalization favored a bi-coastal elite that had global skills, media, law, high-tech, corporate boardroom, and disadvantaged people in the interior, that were natural resource extraction, farming, mining, timber, assembly, things like that, muscular labor. And there was a vocabulary that, as we've talked about, irredeemables, deplorables, clingers, dregs, chumps. I think Biden's latest was garbage. And that kind of became a credo of the Democratic Party. We're the professional classes, and we're smarter because we got really wealthy out of globalization, and now we can concentrate on utopian agendas like transgenderism or New Green Deal. But they lost touch, in other words, with the old lunch bucket middle class of the Democratic Party. So if you look at 92 and 96 Clinton convention agendas, they were paranoid about drifting too far, at least rhetorically, from the middle class. They were for closed borders, they were for unions, they were for tough policing, etc. They were for trying juveniles as adults in some cases. So that was it. And then finally, Charlie, if you look at the fertility rates of red and blue, the top 10 fertile states going up to 2.1 to 1.8 are all red, and the bottom from 1.5 all the way to 1.3 are all blue. And you've got about a 4 million person exodus in addition So there's a sense in the Democratic Party that they're paranoid, or that their model of a blue state professional, especially women who maybe have one or no children, and they want to concentrate, as AOC said, on things like global warming rather than child raising in traditional families. That has an influence as well, and you can see that with the demonstrations. The type of person who goes to those anti-ICE radical demonstrations tend to be single women or professional women, especially. They're overrepresented. All of those add it all up, and I think it's a different Democratic Party, and it'll have to have a McGovern-like disaster before it wakes up.